who would want to be friends with such cruel, sociopathic, meat-headed idiots? Like, Hello everybody and welcome back to my book club. So today we are going to be doing two things. What might those things be, may you ask? Well, we're going to be drinking tea and we're going to be spilling tea. Because as promised, today is my spoiler video for Lucy Foley's The Guest List. So grab your beverage of choice, mine is going to be some tea, and let's get started. For those of you who have not read this book yet, this video is going to be filled with spoilers from the get-go. So I would advise that you check out my spoiler-free video in the description. Basically, I give you 7 reasons why you should read this book. And when you are through with that, and when you've read the book, hopefully, you can come back, you can join us, and we can discuss in the comments down below. Final warning, I will be spoiling out of this book in 3, 2, and 1. Are you guys still here? You guys still here? Okay, let's start. So Lucy Foley certainly sets up a very interesting world here. The setting she has for this novel is this sort of crockpot of iniquity, of sex and drugs and loathing. Every single character has a target on their back, and every single character also has a reason to want to kill somebody else. But the real reason and the real draw is the fact that she doesn't tell you who gets murdered until the very end, and she doesn't tell you who the murderer is also until the very end. So that's what keeps you looking forward to something, that's what keeps readers hooked, and that's certainly what kept me hooked. So the fact that the person who was killed was Will, the groom of Jules, was so satisfying to me because that really did help to hammer in her attempt at giving you an emotional catharsis, because she really sets up Will to be an unlikable jerk. Him and his posse of frat boy, loser, high school people who came from a rich, privileged school, who are misogynistic pigs, chauvinist and just jerks to women and men who they deem to be beta males, was just lovely to see that they got their comeuppance and that there was some remuneration, you know what I mean? So many people have complained that this book is very slow-paced, and to some, I suppose that would be the case, but to me, I was very invested. I thought it was very fast. I got through it very quickly, and the intrigue really does start at the beginning when you sense the foreboding atmosphere of the island. But the real inciting incident is when you find out that Jules gets this ominous letter saying to not marry Will because he's a cheating. And that really starts you questioning things like, who could send this? Who doesn't want her to marry Will? Why is he a cheating? Is he an actual cheating? Could this be a jealous ex-wife? You know, for a while I thought it was Hannah. I thought that she had something to do with Will. I mean, we do learn later on that she does have something to do with Will indirectly. But I would have never known that it was Olivia, and that whole plot twist about them using fake names and dating apps, and she was carrying his baby and then she had to have an abortion, was just like, that was so girl. I mean, I didn't see that coming, and I hate myself for not seeing that coming, because she literally gives you so many clues. Dating app, fake name, why else would this be in this story? That's what I love so much about this book. Not one single thing is put in by accident. She makes you think that you're reading all these unnecessary information. She makes you think that she's like padding it out so you can't accuse her of not having character development. But when everything is revealed, it's like, oh my goodness, all of this stuff was put in for good reason and for good measure, and thank you, Lucy Foley. I had no idea that you were this meticulous and that this book was so lean and so mean and that you were gonna waste no time, you know? I mean, girl, she's so talented, and I highly commend that, because so many books I read have a lot of character development, and it is character development, has nothing to actually do with the payoff at the end. And I suppose Lucy was using this whole Chekhov's gun thing. If something is mentioned in the beginning, it's gotta, you know, play out somehow in the end. And she does that really, really well. And another thing I really liked was the friendship between Olivia and Hannah. Like, seeing Hannah relive her youth and have some genuine fun without having to put on a fake face, without having to fake enjoyment, was like really cool. And when they were in the cave together, sharing a cigarette, sharing a bottle of alcohol, really let you into the dynamic between these two characters and how fun they both are and how they both are introverts at heart. And I could relate to them a lot, because like when I'm at a party, I can spend the whole party not talking to anyone because I am, you know, a huge introvert. Yes, I could completely relate to these two. Not every single aspect of these two, hopefully, but you know, the fact that they were looking for other introverts and they were the two introverts that found each other and struck up a conversation while everybody was behaving like an animal inside the party or the wedding banquet was lovely to read about, and I really enjoyed reading from both their perspectives. And speaking of Hannah, I felt so extremely sorry for her. Like, you hear that Charlie was this attractive man when he was young, and you get that, you know, they fell in love, and you get that Charlie has this whole past with Jules. And here Hannah is going to, you know, she's labeled the plus one, and she's going with Charlie to attend this wedding of Jules, a woman that he's had history with. History that Hannah didn't even know most of. And then just seeing Charlie and Jules interact and Hannah having to be there and witnessing, you know, this woman fawning over her husband was just so painful. And Charlie, oh my goodness. I was so angry at Charlie. I mean, I get that he would want to come off as cool when he's around the boys, but Hannah is your damn wife. When she wanted to go to bed after having been forced to drink that, you know, that glass of alcohol, and he was like telling her that he wanted to stay, like, wouldn't you want to protect her peace of mind? Happy wife, happy life, what the But no, he chooses to stay with these boys and chooses to stay up with Jules while Hannah goes back to the room alone. Like, that should be a sign to get out. Dude, what the, like, I mean, like, I was yelling at myself on the inside reading this part. I couldn't believe the audacity of this man. And when we find out that he actually cheated on Hannah with Jules, like, I was like, girl, leave him, leave him. Leave him if you know what's good for you. This is all the sign you need. This is a sign from up above. Girl, leave him. He's a loser. Another character I found really interesting was Jules herself. She is the bride, but she's not necessarily the protagonist. I think everybody in this novel shares an ample amount of screen time. Like, everybody in this novel is an equal, so it really does feel like a true ensemble cast. And the reason I find Jules to be so interesting is because she came from such a difficult past, like with her mom trying to be an actress and going to these parties and have her sleep in the corner on top of some coats. Like, she comes from a really dark past, so I thought that this would give her incentive to be one of the more empathetic people. But it was really odd seeing her become, well, I mean, like, she was a real jerk and everyone, which I suppose coming off as controlling and like a boss took precedence over being empathetic. Every so often you do see like a hint of potential sympathy towards Olivia, but she never really overtly expresses it to her. But, you know, in the end, when she gives Olivia a hug and they reconcile, you sort of feel good, but Jules' actions throughout the book weren't really enough to get me on her side, you know what I mean? Reading from her perspective, she kind of just sounded like a cold, stoic brat, and that wasn't really too fun to read about. Some sections had me rooting for her. When she splatted the cake on Will's face, I was hoping that she would have done more. I was hoping that that cake splat would have come with a slap afterward and then she would have passed it off as something funny, but I suppose, you know, she was so hung up on maintaining an image that it never really occurred to her to do those things. But yeah, you know, that's my thing with her. That's my thing with her. And speaking of Will, oh my god, I got increasingly furious, infuriated whenever I had to read from Will frat boys. Like, whenever it was like Will's chapter, or whenever it was Johnno's chapter, and whenever they were talking about their history in the school, and Will's dad was the headmaster, and they were bros, and the survival thing in the forest where they were dumping somebody outside and they had to find their way back to the school. That, what the hell? Like, who would want to be friends with such cruel, sociopathic, meat-headed idiots? Like, I'm so happy that she did not let these guys off the hook, because reading from them was just such a pain in the ass. And like, these are people that I would never want to associate with in real life. I don't care if that sounds mean. If you are a jerk, if you are not empathetic, if you are not sympathetic, if you treat people like a game, and if you're shit to women, I'm really glad Lucy didn't let them off the hook. And if you were watching my 7 reasons to read the guest list, this was what I meant when I said that this book was a critique of toxic masculinity. She really shows how unchecked privilege and all these other factors come together to make a real trash human being. and Will is a trash human being, and Johnno is a trash human being, and their whole gang, Pete, I think, and Hugh, or their names were trash human beings, and just all the nope. Nada. And oh my god, can we just like talk about how on the day of the wedding, we know that there's like a storm coming because like all the shit's gonna hit the fan, and then there's like a literal storm coming. I don't know if that was a bit obvious. If any of you found that to be a bit too obvious, kindly leave that in the comment section below. Let me know what you think, because I was like, Lucy. Another thing I'm really curious about, and I'd like to discuss this with you all in the comment section below. Did you guys predict that Will was going to be the guy who got killed? I honestly started predicting this around maybe 2/3 in, when they were at the wedding and Johnno had bumped into the producer of Survive the Night, and we realized that Will screwed him over. And when we started to see hints of how Will had gradually screwed everybody over, like, I knew from then on that Will was going to be dead. And again, I reiterate, like, there was no way in hell that Will could not have been the person who was killed, because gradually, towards the end, every single chapter was basically a laundry list of how Will had screwed everybody over. And oh my goodness, like, again, I reiterate, the scene when Olivia revealed who Will was to her in her past, you know, like, she was experimenting on dating apps and this guy knocked her up and she thought that he was going to be his boyfriend, but he was clearly using her to his advantage, or, you know, his whole fantasy about, you know, being in control or having dominance over weak or fragile women and stealing their innocence. Like, I was like, oh my god. And that scene when Olivia reveals what happened, I love how Lucy Foley juxtaposes it. Like, the very next scene almost is Hannah realizing that Will was the guy who caused her sister Ashley, I think, to commit suicide because Will spread her nudes. And then Olivia is confronting Will and he threatens to spread her nudes. So that really was like, whoa, this really just underscores who he is as a person. He is someone who is all about control, he is a megalomaniac, and he is a sociopath, and he is a human being. And that is all I can say about him. Looks be damned. You can be the most beautiful person on the exterior, but if you are not beautiful on the inside, you don't count. Well, okay, so I was trashing Will's boy squad, right? I must admit that I had a bit of sympathy for Johnno when he was in the cave with Will, and they were talking about how, or Johnno rather, was talking about how Will took out all the happiness from his life. And to that regard, it was slightly Johnno's fault that Loner died, but the fact that Johnno had nothing good happen to him his whole life as a result, and when one good thing was going to happen with regard to Survive the Night, and Will screwed him over by not telling him about the meeting and having the meeting with a producer without Johnno, was like, I mean, I kind of felt bad for him. Obviously, it's more on Will. Obviously, Will is the bigger bad guy, and what he did does not excuse Johnno's behavior. I mean, I just gotta say, like, that scene in the cave was, I was kind of rooting for Johnno to kind of do something to Will, like, maybe this is gonna be the scene when someone gets killed, but, you know, when Alfie, I think that's how you pronounce your name, when Alfie, I don't know how to, I am such an uncultured swine, I don't know how to pronounce European names. I think this book is British. I am 98% European, by the way. I didn't grow up in Europe, so, girl, I mean, you know. So yeah, when Alfie comes into the cave and then Johnno doesn't get to do whatever it was he intended to do to Will, I was like, damn! But, you know, I am much happier with how the story concluded. When every single chapter from every single woman who Will screwed over was ending with, and the lights go out, and we were getting closer and closer to the big reveal, I was like, freaking out, freaking out, freaking out. If you watched the video before this, and I was telling you about how I was like covering the screen of my phone so I wouldn't get spoiled, that was when this was happening. That was when I was literally trying so hard not to like look at the word below, the paragraph below, because like I was like, no, I don't want to get spoiled, even though I know it's gonna be real, I don't want to get spoiled. And I just love how they tied that in. I mean, when they were flashing back to Will and Johnno and the boys this time in the academy, and they were talking about how they would tease this Loner guy about the pictures of his sister, I thought that that was just something inconsequential. Like, luckily, I actually did remember that. I didn't think I would. But when they reveal who Alfie is in the end, I was like, oh my god, oh my gosh, she really... Full circle. Anyway, that is my rave review of The Guest List by Lucy Foley. If you've read this book and you have favorite parts that I didn't discuss, please let me know what you thought. comment them down below, like, favorite, subscribe. That'll do it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care.